heard of, prototype sharding, feature sharding, the whole EIP around data blocks that optimizes for, L2s posting proofs back on chain on L1. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because we don't see that, DeFi evolving towards, staying on L1, but rather evolving towards L2s, where the monetary value and the NFTs and trading activity will happen. But if you think in the case of scaling order books, you start to compare with, the centralized crypto or actual Web 2, you see that, Binance does 6 million TPS on a peak day, right? In no way we can compare 6 million TPS to the TPS we get on an L2 with an AMM at this point in time. So if you have to cater to millions of users, you actually need to think beyond L2s and how do you build additional infrastructure and layers that work in tandem with the L2s through self-custody and account abstraction, so the monetary value is safe within the L2 level, but you can still scale the entire, application and to cater to, the next wave of the so-called billion users, right, that we all talk about coming into DeFi. And so this new layer, some people call it L3s, dedicated app chains, instant rollups. There's a whole bunch of technology being built, but we think that that area will be key in order to actually scale solutions and make them, actually, feasible for a mass retail market, which is what we haven't achieved yet. So the experts, visions, like all of us, we're still going to be using AMMs at the L2 and L1 level probably in the near future. But if we really want to scale these solutions forward, you still need certain efficiencies that come with, higher scalability solutions, decentralized order books, and so on.
Cool. Thanks, Edward. So maybe we can start with the second question. How can ZK improve composability and interoperability among DeFi protocols? What are some example scenarios? Maybe we can start from China.
Yeah, I'll jump to this one first. I'll keep it short because I know we don't have a lot of time to keep moving. But basically, I think one of the first scenarios that I think of would be cross-chain interoperability, right? And I think this is something that, although it is relatively simple, it's something that we always face, regardless of which chain you prefer to work off. At some point, you're going to have to move across chain. And I think in one way, that's where ZK can come in and help. That's where ZK comes in. Yeah, cross-chain interoperability.
Yeah. So part of the reason why a lot of people are in DeFi is because they want low risk and also privacy as well as efficiency. So something that ZK provides is just lower gas fee. That's obviously something that it's very important for a lot of DeFi users. And then also the fact that ZK is able to prove something is done without actually reviewing more information about others. So, and this is also important for a lot of DeFi users because privacy is also very important in DeFi. And at the same time, it could help with governance in terms of tallying votes without actually revealing everyone's identity. So I think those are really important points about ZK in terms of
Okay, so seems that we're the only infra projects here, so I will be taking this question. So I'll start with interoperability. How ZK can help interoperability? Okay, we have seen some other projects building ZK bridges, and ZK as a multi-chain focused project. They're also very focusing on this area, but we're doing this in a different approach. We're building directly our infra. We're deploying our contract directly to multiple layer 2s, including layer 1s, right? So, and then the application builders can choose the selection of the networks that they actually want to provide to their end users. So you say that one application can come to us and say, oh, we want Ethereum layer 2s, everything, including ZK rollups and OP rollups. And another application, they say, okay, I want layer 2s. At the same time, currently business reasons tell me that we also want liquidity from BNB chain Polygon because there are still a lot of users, still a lot of project assets and inactive, and say, okay, this is fine, we can do that for you too. And some projects say we strictly just want derive security from Ethereum, so we want to inherit the 100% security of Ethereum. Okay, so then you can deploy to Ethereum layer 1 and ZK layer 2s, which strictly derive 100% security from Ethereum mainnet. So yeah, this is one option they have. And how we do this is that once you choose the set of your networks, and then you have ZK proofs posting the transactions to each of the networks, and then users can trade in one user interface of the assets using liquidities abstracted from these different ecosystems. So say if you now are trading on 10 different ZK rewards, or maybe right now 7, right? You need probably more than maybe you need several, maybe 4 or 5 different wallets to monitor your tokens on different ecosystems. So on the ZK stacks, you just need one wallet. This is simplified user experience. Simplified user experience is very important, extremely important for mass adoption. Yeah, one step simpler, and then you get more users. The more complex you get, the less users you will get in the end. We're doing this interoperability, not like allowing users to transfer funds from one channel. Of course, you can use ZK-Link stacks to transfer a token from blockchain A or rollup A to rollup B. This is how you can also use Binance for, right? But that's not ultimately why you want to build this. Ultimately, you want to simplify this multi-chain experience by allowing users to stay on one product, one user interface, and they forget about the chains, they forget about rollups. I think this is interoperability that we want. But if you do want to move your funds among different chains, networks, you can do that. You can do so. With the ZK-Link infra as well. We will have a liquidity rebalance product we call ZK-Jump. They can incentivize users to do transfers and earn money. They are incentivized to do so, to rebalance liquidity for certain applications, because some applications may have a shortage on one certain network when users are moving to that network suddenly from, for example, from Stacknet suddenly to Manta, right? A lot of users want to suddenly withdraw the funds to Manta because there's a wonderful, amazing project on Manta, then there's a very good opportunity. A lot of users want to go there, use that product, and then they want to withdraw their funds from Stacknet or ZK-Sync, for example, and they go to Manta, then they can do that too. And then some users, underlying users, will use ZK-Jump to rebalance liquidities, because you need to essentially have the liquidity in the smart contract first to allow users to do that withdrawal. So with zero-knowledge proofs, where you're doing everything in a transparent way, and also in a way that it can be proved with zero-knowledge proofs, so the total sum of funds are strictly equivalent. So you're going to move liquidity from the portable, need to have liquidity there. So this is another product that we're providing. And for example, Izumi, I think you can use this feature as well. This is composability, right? So if you have liquidity that can be called by other products, this is composability. I think there's a lot more ZK projects that will offer different solutions, slightly different in terms of interoperability and composability. But honestly speaking, I think in our use case, we are very difficult focused, but at the same time, limit order books for focus. So we're actually losing composability compared with AMMs, because it's harder to call liquidity from order books compared with AMMs. So we're having to learn about your thoughts on this composability issue.
I may add one sentence and also correct for Vince. First, I think for ZK technology, actually, especially for the layer 2 and rollups, I think two things are most important for the traders. One is security, and second is the efficiency. For security, like with the zero-knowledge proof, there could be more possibilities to get the fund more safe, instead of like running into some corner cases to get your token stolen by some hackers, or when you deposit it in a like centralized bridge to bridge the money from the mainnet to the rollup. With the ZK bridge or ZK technology-based bridge, it can be easier to do that, to ensure that the money trading on your rollup is very safe. And second is efficiency. Like if you Vin said, if you are a trader, sometimes you want to do some arbitrage and rebalance moves, and you need to move from your money from one chain to another. So with this kind of the ZK type of the maybe it's called ZK jump or like ZK bridge or what this kind of the technology, it can be faster than the like the traditional OPU lab that needs about 14 days challenging time period. So it can be you can make the use of your money in a more efficient way. So I think these two things are quite important to imply ZK technology into the DeFi.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something controversial, which is composability is overrated. And I mean it in a good way. Composability matters to us, the people in this room, right? It matters to the builders, to the core users of this ecosystem. But to the end user, that doesn't really matter to a certain extent, right? They just want to have easy access, trade, use products, have passive income. So therefore, composability is something that is important to us, the ones that we are building and using these tools. But actually to the end user, we need to offer them something that has already the composability built into the product, right? We cannot expect the end user in Indonesia, in Vietnam, or India to actually go and take their LP tokens, port them over to another ecosystem, use something else with those LP tokens, and then use that as collateral to take out a loan, and all the things that for us might be some day-to-day stuff, but for them that's just out of the way. So the fact that we're able to simplify this experience into some form of structured products, passive income products, that will be very important for adoption. And that's where I think talking about low gas fees is also probably not a differentiating factor in the long term. It is for us who are now using these chains, but for mass adoption, we really probably need to start thinking what's really the value add that we want to offer to these users. And I think that's probably some more of an ecosystem effort that we start thinking more, not just to making products just for us and for our enjoyment, but also for the long term and for this wider adoption in the future.
Well, thank you. Right, maybe we can, besides of the liquidity and composability, and we can talk something extremely new stuff. This is like intent. Intent is super hot topic nowadays, and basically, what do you guys think modular and intent in our current DeFi? And would the intent be a good way to solve problem of fragment cross-chain liquidity currently? Maybe we can start from Panda.
Yeah, so I'll jump in with intent. So basically, it is a new topic, right? Everything in this industry that's new, every new idea, every new advancement in technology needs time to grow before you can actually understand it. But the way that I see intent, at DAPOS we are taking the intent-centric approach. Basically, rather than account abstraction, where you really focus on the transaction process, intent is focusing on the desired outcome of the user. So to give a shitty analogy, basically we're sitting in a nightclub, right? And during the daytime, you're able to see all the lights, all the sounds, the people working behind the scenes. But at night, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dance, I'm gonna have fun, I'm gonna drink. And so I don't see what's going on behind the scenes. All I want is the desired outcome. So I think that's the way I see intent-centric, and I think it's here to stay.
I think there are many other words that you can translate intent. I think the first word that comes to me is abstraction. Besides account abstraction, there is also chain abstraction, which is very important actually for mass adoption. Because there are already dozens of chains. There will be hundreds, maybe thousands of rollups. Imagine if you have to jump from one chain to another and one route to another. Each time you use a different application, this will be very pain for users. So we need to definitely need to abstract this part for for user adoption. I think this is also areas of focus, how to abstract the chains and the rollups. Users won't feel the pain when they have to frequently switch between different apps. Also, account abstraction is a very big part as well. I think layer 2 and the layer 3 applications want to be as successful as we imagine to be without account abstraction. When users need account system, they do need like EUA wallet where they have to worry about the seed phrase all the time, and actually the learning cost for this part is also higher than we could imagine, because we are as crypto builders, as OGs, you probably already adopted it, but as a newcomer from Web 2, and when you have to educate them, they can go through this process and it take days, maybe take weeks for them to actually understand how it works, and to convince them is not difficult. It's not an easy job. We actually need a account system as intuitive and as simple that you can go to maybe your aunties, your uncles, and they will learn how to use it. And that's a type of user experience we actually need to deliver. There are also other aspects of abstractions too, and I think everything together is for user experience. Simplified user experience is the key for adoption.
Yes, I may like to share some thoughts about intent and modular from Izumi's view. Actually, from my side, I think for the supply side, if we want to deploy more modular-based blockchain, it's a good way to reduce the cost and also increase the efficiency. And all of them, just like we said, is behind the scene. So users don't need to care about who is working on which part, like who is working for RPC, who is working for the consensus or no service. So from the supply side, if we could make more professional jobs together to put some different companies or groups or talents efforts together to provide a holistic solution, it is a way to increase the efficiency. But from the demand side, from the user side, if they could be easier for them to understand, actually users don't mind offering more gas or offering more fees. So just let the users be the leaders. They can just tell, what I want to do, and all the solvers or all the things behind could be solved by competitive, different groups to work for these orders. That would be a way to provide better service and user experience. So it's a way to lower the user barrier for maybe next tens of millions or billions users come on board, and to expand the whole ecosystem.
Cool. So, thank you for sharing. I think, basically modular really can reduce the gas fee compared to the existing layer 2, like maybe go down 80% or even 90%. The intent is just like Lin said, abstraction is basically make user have better experience. I think we are about to end, and the last question, basically we can just use maybe one sentence to share what will be the your recent product progress and future plan. Besides release of Meta and about the midnight launch, and what else on your roadmap?
Yeah, so for Dodo, the next step is to deploy on more ZKGs as well. And we also have Dodo V3 coming up next. And more updates will be on Twitter. Read it already.
Alright, yeah, DAppOS version 2, beta version just launched last week. So go to dappos.com, we have the links to everything if you want to follow along.
Yeah, for ZKX, we released our app chain last week, which is an omni-chain derivatives infrastructure that can work with Manta as well as Darknet and other L2s. So yeah, if you want to know more about us, search us on Twitter. We're over there. More announcements coming this week, tomorrow, and next week. So stay tuned.
For Izumi, as its name, it means the liquidity, the spring of water in Japanese. Actually, our next plan is to make the liquidity more efficiency for the on-chain trading. So we will promote the shared liquidity program to make you can stake LP for one chain but earn the trading fees and incentives and benefits from multi-chains. And it's also a way to bootstrap the liquidity for some promising new chains to let them to have the essential liquidity to bootstrap. Yes.
There are 3 updates that I want to share with the audience. The first update is developer focused. We just launched mainnet alpha in July, and we're live on 10 mainnets, 6 layer 2s and 4 layer 1s. And there are 3 applications that users can use now, including a multi-chain order book DEX, that provides perp and spot trading in one user interface with unified account and portfolio margin enabled. And the second type is RWA derivatives. Basically, you can trade real-world assets to derivative, perpetualize everything, and it's a totally new user experience. And the third product, as mentioned, is ZK Jump. It can help you bridge your assets and also can help developers to rebalance the liquidities among different layer 2 and layer 1s. And we will go to mainnet beta in about 4 weeks time, and we will bring the perpetual contract trading live on mainnet beta, and then we will enable NFT features and to allow builders to build more feature-rich applications using our multi-role, multi-chain infra based on ZK Snarks, security guarantee underlying.
Cool. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward. We can start from here. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists, for shedding light on the exciting possibility that this intersection presents. And next, I'm pleased to introduce the next panel, in dissecting the modular infrastructure stack. And please welcome Sam Ozer, co-founder of Sovereign, Kenny Lee, co-founder of Manta Network, Mary Liu, business development manager at Celestia, Johan Tang, director of operations at Polymer DAO, Dorothy, head of growth of Outlayer, and last but not least, Antonio from Polyhedra.
Jen, if you're in the audience, you are needed up here. Are you the guy running right now? Wow.
Take your time, take your time.
Even more charming in person. Hi, Jen.
Okay, let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm Dorothy, head of growth at Outlayer. Today I'm very honored to have a very talented group of people pushing the boundaries in modularity and scaling. So first of all, please give us a self-intro. Tell us who you are, what you're building, and what is your project focus on right at the moment. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jed. I'm from Sovereign, and at Sovereign what we're building is Sovereign SDK, which is a rollup framework.
I'm Johanna, I come from Polymer Labs. What we're building is modular interoperability, expanding IBC to all chains.
Hi everyone, I'm Kenny. I'm one of the co-founders of Manta Network, and we are building a modular layer 2 to enable ZK applications.
Hi, I'm Mary. I work on strategic partnerships at Celestia Labs. We are the first modular blockchain network in that our blockchain focuses entirely on data availability.
Hi, I'm Antonio from Polyhedra Network. We provide trustless and efficient cross-chain interoperability protocol powered by ZKP technology.
We actually have very spicy questions today. So hold on your seatbelt. Are you ready? The first question is super spicy. It's on a highly debated topic, smart contract rollup versus sovereign rollup. I know there's Camp Vitalik, Camp Ethereum, and there's Camp Celestia and sovereign rollup. So I'm not forcing you to pick a side here, but please tell us what's the difference between sovereign rollup and smart contract rollup, and tell us why do you think there's a reason for using sovereign rollup?
This might be controversial, but the question is spicy, so I guess it's fine. I don't think there's much of a difference between sovereign rollups and smart contract rollups. At the end of the day, the difference is, are you bridging back to the layer 1 or not? And you might have that bridge, you might not have that bridge. I don't think it impacts the product or the user experience too much. So I think this is a subject that gets exaggerated a little bit, but at the end of the day, when users are building their applications as rollups, I don't think there's going to be a lot of focus on if it's sovereign or smart contract rollup.
I think there's a lot of differences, and it's really unique in the way that people approach it. But from a Polymer perspective, we approach them all similarly. So what Jen is saying, that we support all rollups the same way. We're going to be able to be used on all chains by all rollups. We're really excited by the modular blockchain thesis altogether and how interoperability can be extended to everyone using it.
Yeah, and I think talking about the roll-up and kind of figuring out which team you're on is a little bit of a interesting position that we have in Web3, because nowhere else in any other industry, in any other tech sector, do people care so much about infrastructure as much as we do in blockchain, right? Are you Ethereum-based? Are you not Ethereum-based? Are you, Solana? Are you not Solana? Right? No one cares about, are you Amazon AWS or Google Cloud, right? No one cares if are you Ericsson? Are you Huawei? Well, I guess, right now people care if you're Ericsson or Huawei, but normally people don't, right? And so we take that same philosophy over at Manta. We don't really focus specifically on being so concentrated on pushing out the value proposition of the infrastructure or the infrastructure stack, right? That's definitely very important to us, and that's exactly why we have partnered with Celestia for the modularity side for data availability. But at the same time, right, one of the missions we came in going into this was to make sure that ZK application development is achievable and easy to access, easy to build, easy to deploy for any sort of developer out there. And right now the biggest ecosystem of developers is EVM based, and so we are very much tailored towards that. Not because we're focused on some specific cult or team, but more so because we want to kind of push that adoption, and that's where all the development and adoption is.
Entirely agree. I would just highlight some key kind of technical differences. I know Kenny just emphasized the overemphasis on caring too much about technical differences, but in sovereign rollups, transactions are verified by the sovereign rollup nodes itself, whereas smart contracts settle back to a different settlement layer. And then sovereign rollups maintain their own settlement layer. I think one of the key differences that we really believe in supporting the growth of sovereign rollups is that sovereign rollups maintain the freedom to fork or not, so they preserve whether or not the community accepts the underlying updates of the base layer blockchain.
So here at Polyhedron Network, we love all the rollups, different ways of rollups. We love sovereign rollups, we love smart contract rollups, we love optimistic rollups, we love ZK rollups. Because we are doing interoperability. So for us, we don't want to, we love the debate in how we should construct different types of rollups. And our belief that, different types of approach has different advantages in different fields. So eventually, at the end of the day, users will be able to choose which rollup they like, which chain they like, which layer 2 they like, which layer 1 they like. But what we are offering here is we want our developers and our users to have the choice, always have the choice. For example, if you deploy on one chain at a time, but then you'll find you're already a smart contract rollup developer, but one day you'll find sovereign rollup is much better in some perspectives, will help you easily migrate everything, your data, your assets from your current chain to a sovereign rollup chain. And that's our mission for interoperability in Web3.
I guess whether we use sovereign rollup or smart contract rollup, the end goal is to make the blockchain more modular. And that brings us our second question. How can ZK help us to achieve better modularity, or in the process of making all the blockchains more modular, how can we integrate ZK technology better?
Starting with the first question, in the modular world, you can imagine both fraud-proof-based designs, optimistic rollups, and ZK rollups. But what really sets out like ZK rollups apart is the fact that you can aggregate these proofs and basically create a mesh network of all the applications, and you can have a bridging logic or messaging logic that's similar to the smart contracts out there. The Cosmos had a lot of problems with sending messages across applications because there's no multi-hop bridge system that's working right now. In IBC, I don't think that it's working yet, and the bridges are quite sparse, and that results in an ecosystem that's unable to has a lot of composability. Whereas with in a world built with ZK rollups, all these applications can message each other quite easily. So that makes building applications way easier for developers. So, yeah.
I don't think ZK is necessarily a fundamental aspect of the modular blockchain thesis, but it does help because you can, for each of the pieces of the modular blockchain, you can then apply ZK however you would like it. You don't need the entire blockchain, the monolithic blockchain, to use ZK, right? So that's a really cool aspect of it, I think. From a Polymer standpoint, analogous to the modular blockchain thesis, we look at the modular interoperability thesis. And what we've done is pulled out the state layer, and we've created this hybrid verification proof ability with optimistic and ZK proof. So that's one way that we've used ZK in our modular interoperability problem solving.
Got it. Yeah. So there's been a lot of talk about ZK more so on the snarks type rollup situation. We use ZK more so on the application layer, and when I think about modularity and the whole philosophy behind it, we were kind of talking about this with Nick just a second ago, right? Is to me it sounds like an as a service model, right? Essentially what happens is now you don't have to build everything yourself. You can not purchase, but use other components, plug them into your application, and ultimately deliver value on demand. And so for us, right, when it comes to ZK, especially on the application layer, what we're really trying to do with Pacific is to offer ZK as a service. So if you're a Solidity developer, chances are you probably don't know too much about cryptography, compiling circuits, using CirCom, et cetera, and that actually is a very big barrier to entry to enable some type of feature that is probably very critical for you to deliver your value. And so instead of trying to learn how to build these circuits yourself, you can now use these circuits as a service type model. So ZK as a service, we call it the universal circuit. And I think that is also philosophically kind of the same approach in terms of modularity, except not exactly on the infrastructure layer, but more so on the application layer. And so I think there's a lot of room to grow also for the developer ecosystem when it comes to modularity and thinking about the components that can truly be plug and play to make it as easy as possible for a developer to build, deploy, and just scale their applications really quickly.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see nascent areas of the market develop, especially on ZK-proof marketplaces. I've heard that a number of ZK hardware accelerators are working on supporting proof marketplaces as well. At Celestia, we've looked at and continue to monitor emerging types of new technology. We've been really fortunate to have ecosystem partners that have worked in advancements in ZK infrastructure. So to highlight a few, Sovereign Labs is collaborating with Resiro to create infrastructure SDKs for ZK rollups, right? Manta is specifically focused on ZK application layers. It's been phenomenal to see like all these different types of infrastructure that support more advanced forms of ZK technology develop. And at the moment we're focused on mainnet launch, but continue to work with all these ecosystem teams to ensure that, you know, at Celestia, like we stay at the forefront of the market as well.
So since we are talking about ZK and modular here, when we were writing our ZK bridge paper like 5-6 years ago, when we were still at UC Berkeley, we actually thought of like ZK bridge is actually a part of a bigger ecosystem. When we invented ZK Bridge, it is supposed to be a plug-and-play feature into the current Web3 world where if you're seeing polyhedral collaboration with layer 0, you may be wondering, hey, you are both doing bridge. How does that work? So actually, ZK fundamentally is an algorithm. And that algorithm actually can be part of any bigger system. So if you look at the bridge, when we're using ZK, we're actually using ZK as a proof of consensus, where we are able to generate ZKP for different consensus of different blockchains. No matter it's layer 1 or layer 2 doesn't have consensus, but we have other workarounds for layer 2 proofs. So basically, we have that proof ready, and that proof can be used in any part of the Web3 ecosystem where you want to build DeFi on it, you want to build GameFi on it, you want to build, well, games or any other cross-chain messaging protocol. You can always use ZK as a part of your system. So ZK natively in Web3 setting, it is a modular, it's a module of a bigger system where we use ZK to accelerate your finality. We use ZK to make your system cheaper. We use ZK to replace the traditional third-party trustee setup to make it trustless and more secure. So ZK fundamentally as a technology, we think it is modular, and Polyhedra network is helping to make ZK proof available to anyone, to any developers, to any community members, to any our end users.
I guess for a lot of non-technical people, sometimes we'll mistake ZK technology from ZK rollups because they just they just show up so often. We think ZK equates with ZK rollups, but in reality, ZK is just a proof technology that can be used across the infra layer, application layer, across all aspects in the blockchain industry. So I do think this panel clarifies a lot of the questions we had. So moving on to the next question, we're all aware that we're still in the bear market. I hope this is a kind of a consensus. Unfortunately, it's still a bear market being questioned, and we do see a lot more infra projects than application projects. And some people would comment that there are way more infra projects in the market than applications, and all these infra projects are kind of acting like VC funds to hopefully get more projects to deploy on their infra, but we don't see them being very successful. So what's your take on this? I guess this is another spicy question. In your opinion, would the advancement in the infra layer really just naturally attract better applications, or we need to do actually a lot more work than just having better tech?
I think infra and application goes in cycles. So like DeFi summer and like the following like bull market, we have lots of applications of similar sort, to be honest, because they were based on very limited infra. But now we're seeing like so many infrastructure projects, people working on very similar things from time to time. And I think the natural like response will be again another period of like lots of new applications. And I think it's natural, and it's just like how new technology like works. Yeah, that's.
I love this question because I get it all the time from friends and people I talk to not in the space of why are you still in crypto, right? Like, why are you building infrastructure? Look at the bear market If we built a car, if we built engines, which is like blockchain technology, this amazing new technology is engineering, but what do we do with it? Everyone takes it and builds a different car. Maybe a 10-foot wide car that doesn't fit on the roads we have today. Maybe a too small of a car that doesn't follow safety standards. But what I think is cool about it is that now that we've seen all the applications, we can take a step back and build infrastructure in the way that is necessary to facilitate a better environment. So for instance, at Polymer, we view IBC, the Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol, as kind of like the standards, like the rules of the road. They established around the world that red means stop and green means go. And now Polymer, we're taking those standards and creating the network of roads so that everyone can move in the same way, in a safe way, so that when applications then come back in the cycles that Jen was referring to, everyone is now moving in a better and more facilitated, regulated manner.
I like the car analogy. I think, there is a lot of infrastructure, especially nowadays, right? When you look at roll-up as a service models and how easy it is to deploy infrastructure, I think we're only going to have more and more of that. There are advantages to that, but before I get into that, I did say there's a lot of infrastructure, but I do think that we are still lacking in infrastructure innovation, and I think we're going to see a lot of that lack of infrastructure innovation now that infrastructure itself has become infrastructure as a service. And so anyone who has been in the cloud computing space or as a system architect or as DevOps knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? When you use Amazon AWS, you spin up a cloud server and it's all the same cloud server, right? So like having that homogeneous structure allows for, in the future, I think, further breakthrough innovation around horizontal scalability, which I think is pretty important. But then in terms of the innovation itself, right, like, and it's the same kind of question we get at Manta, which is like, okay, so Manta's launching an L2, so what? Everyone's launching an L2, right? And so like what we really focus on is like, where's that innovation angle? And where we see the next 5 to 10 years trending is having that ZK enablement for all applications to really hit that next generation application. And in order to do that, you have to make ZK development as easy as possible. And so that's where a lot of the innovation that we focus on comes in. And I do hope that despite the fact that infrastructure is becoming a commodity, there is a lot more infrastructure innovation because it's desperately needed.
Yeah, so I would kind of start off with the comment that I think the last 2 years were certainly ridiculous. I think that amassing large ecosystem funds from layer ones to invest in projects that faded away after 6-8 months, that was just ultimately like ridiculous and probably a consequence of how easy it was to raise venture capital funding over the last 2 years. What we've chosen to focus on at Celestia is to look for like key strategic partnerships with applications that are building applications that uniquely need roll-up infrastructure. So we've been really fortunate to have organic partners come to us, really appreciate the work that we focus on, and then build net new innovative applications, such as, to highlight a few, Argus Labs. Argus is a gaming world engine in which on-chain games can deploy on shards that are functionally blockchains that have a higher tick rate than could ever be supported on Ethereum, right? Ethereum can never support fully on-chain games in its state right now because it's just too expensive. So being able to work with like these key strategic partnerships that can really uniquely take advantage of roll-up infrastructure, that's certainly what we look for. So right now, like we look for an initial set of options protocols, fully on-chain games. These folks who like really understand why they're choosing to deploy on a new type of infrastructure. I also think that as more of these application-specific roll-ups come to market, there's a merging point between like what is an application and what is infrastructure. I think I had a moment working with a roll-up team that's experimenting with on-chain inference, where I was like, wow, like you guys are functionally like an application. There's like this merging point between like applications and infrastructure, because like as application-specific rollups continue to deploy, it almost becomes indistinguishable between like what's a roll-up and what's an application.
Yeah, can't agree more with that. So we're seeing application-specific rollups. Rollups are built for applications. Infrastructures are built for applications. So the key at the end of the day, so we have a lot of infrastructure here. Some may fail, some may continue to survive. But the key for which one to survive is if there are applications using our infrastructure. Because we build infrastructure, Polyhedra, we build a lot different infrastructures, including ZK Bridge. So one key metric that we're looking at when we are thinking of if we want to build a new infrastructure project is, are there that many applications on the market that want to use your infrastructure? And is it easy for the application to integrate with your infrastructure? And what does your infrastructure bring to the applications? I'm going to circle it back on the ZK topic because ZK is hard to understand. Well, people are marketing where ZK companies will build ZK Bridge. But concepts are good concepts. However, there are too many concepts in the market where it's hard to differentiate from only a concept level if an infrastructure is good. Different infrastructure projects claim they have different advantages. They have all those different concepts. It's really too much for investors, for consumers, for end users. But one thing we're looking for as an infrastructure company is that good infrastructure does bring advantage, not from the concept level, but from the application level. For example, ZK Bridge. People are talking about ZK Bridge, but it's maybe only very few knows what ZK Bridge brings, what ZK brings. So one example, because I'm in the product segment of the company, when we go out to talk about partnerships with using our ZK Bridge, key metrics here, we talk about finality. So you don't need to understand ZK, but you understand finality. How soon can your transaction be delivered? We have significant advantage using ZK compared to optimistic rollups. ZK rollups has much faster finality time. That's one metric. And also when talking about bridge, when you're using ZK Bridge, we never persuade our company saying, hey, we have very good ZK technology. We tell them ZK Bridge is 80% cheaper than traditional bridge. And that's how they want to use it. It's not because they want to use ZK in their marketing proposal, but ZK does bring good benefits to our partners. And also efficiency. We let them know how efficient ZK Bridge can be. Let them know how cheap ZK Bridge can be. That's the true advantage of good infrastructure. So come back to the infrastructure topic. There are too many infrastructures in the market. People are saying there are more infrastructure than applications. And it's because applications are still in the process of sourcing good infrastructure. It's because it's very easy to make a concept, but it's very hard to really implement the concept and bring that to the application level. And that's what we are focusing on. We want to bring the infrastructure, we want to bring true benefits of applying real good infrastructure with our application. And we want to make that adoption in very good settings. For example, we are achieving over 100,000 transactions every day on ZK Bridge because our partners know when you are using ZK Bridge, it's cheap, it's fast, and they don't need to know about ZK because the infrastructure ultimately brings real benefits to the applications who want to adopt our infrastructure.
Thank you. That's a very long and exciting answer. I probably know your answer for our next question. What's the application you're most excited about ZK Bridge? Sorry for front running. So our next question is is there any particular application that you're excited about, or just give us an application sector if you don't have a particular answer?
To give a sector, I think, given that we've seen a lot of problems with centralized exchanges, FTX, the companies like Celsius, these finance applications, centralized finance applications have created a bad name for crypto. I think it's super interesting for new application teams that are leveraging rollups to build very low latency applications that mimic these centralized applications. but in a verifiable and censorship-resistant way. I think that's what will make like a lot of impact soon in this modular world. So some people call it centralized, CDFI, centralized finance, but you're able to get like low latency, like great user experience, but in a censorship-resistant way, which is quite interesting, like for teams that are coming from like the Web 2 world.
One of the things we're probably most excited about is cross-chain liquidity. Related to CFI, you have DeFi Summer, where it was so hard to move your money from point A to point B to point B. So at Polymer Labs, we're powering like a project like Catalyst, and they're building cross-chain liquidity, which I think will be very exciting and create such a better user experience for all of us in this room who probably tried to bridge things from one place to another.
Yeah, so I keep saying like, ZK being the next generation for enabling on-chain applications, but let me give you an example. And so, when you're playing a game of like chess or checkers, right? Like we're at the table, it's a chess game, 2-player game. It's a perfect information game. And what I mean by that is that everything that you see on the board, everyone else can see. And so if we were to put this on chain, then we can have the state of the game on chain at any point in time, and that's okay, right? And so I can say knight to d7, and you'll know exactly where my knight goes. And so both of us, we have this perfect transparency. But then there are imperfect information games. So how do you put a game like poker on chain? Right? And so when you think about that, it's like, okay, we have to shuffle the cards. We have to agree that the way that the cards are shuffled are the way it was supposed to be. And when I deal the card to you, you're supposed to have the card that you were supposed to be dealt, right? Everything was done fairly. But at the same time, we're saying, okay, that is your card, but I have no idea what that card is. So it's almost like a proof itself, right? And so how do you put a game like that on chain? If I were to query the state of a game on the blockchain, I could see all the cards, where they are, what hand you have, what hand I have, and it defeats the whole purpose of these types of imperfect information games. And so in order to build these next generation games, such as these imperfect information games like poker, any card game, board games, right, like League of Legends on chain, right, like you have to have some type of zero knowledge provability, as well as using things like homomorphic encryption, but too many details. Point is, that's what a next generation application looks like, right? Like things that just can't exist today. Oh yeah, and that project is called ZK Hold'em. Sorry, that's the app. Yeah.
I think that if you ask anyone on the Celestia team what their favorite roller project application is, everyone will have a different answer. For me, I'm extremely boring, so my favorite applications that are being worked on right now is via one of the Rollups as a Service projects that we work with. So Rollups as a Service projects, they can take any rollup framework, post data to any data availability layer, like Celestia, and then work directly with the business itself to handle the protocol engineering aspects. So in particular, two of the companies that I like the most are a health tech startup that is tokenizing patient data, and then also a sports engagement, fan engagement platform that's using digital collectibles to engage fans of sports teams. So those are two of my favorite projects that are just refreshingly boring.
It's about applications. We love games. Well, I love games. I play too many games. So we want to enable like multi-chain games and fully on-chain games with our technology. So we believe that game is always a very crucial part of the internet. And also games should be a very essential part of Web3, but we're not seeing that many Web3 games. So what we are looking for out there is fully on-chain Web3 games or partially on-chain Web3 games, no matter if you're building from Web3 or even you're a Web2 game developer coming into Web3. We want to support that types of games with ZK Bridge, of course, to provide a full interoperability for game developers to easily develop on any of the chains. Any of the chains you like can easily move across different chains whenever you want. So that's the thing we envision in the future.
Thank you. Considering the limited time we have left, we have the final question for our panelists, and please make your answer very short and precise. So tell us what's your recent development of your project and your future plans.
That's a good one. So it's 10 seconds. So we are supporting more layer 2s in the system, including Manta, including Linea, including Tycho you see here. So we want ZK Bridge to be fully interoperable within the system for all rollups, layer 2 and layer 1 and any blockchain ecosystem.
We're supporting the launch of a number of rollups as well as rollups as a service projects, Manta included. So we continue to be really excited to support our ecosystem projects. And then for Celestia itself, it's one word, it's mainnet.
I think we share that same word. So we just launched mainnet as well, and we're really excited to start onboarding as many applications as possible. We already have 250 contracts from testnet that are doing their current migration, and so if anyone in this audience is a developer, they've got an EVM-based application, would love to speak with you guys.
We're on the cusp of a lot of exciting news as well. We're about to launch our public testnet, so we invite any developers who want to come play with our network, and then obviously a mainnet afterwards. We'll be at, we'll host some more IBC summits. We'll see you guys at Solana Breakpoint and DevConnect soon, as well as a virtual hackathon. So if you guys are interested in hanging out with us, find us then.
We're on our way to get to a testnet product and like getting to beta, and as we do that, in the upcoming weeks we'll be publishing more and more demos and tutorials. So we're very excited about getting those out there and getting as much as people playing with the SDK, seeing the limits of the applications they can build with this new next generation blockchain-based application tool.
Thank you everyone.
Sharing. I believe that their diverse background experiences has provided invaluable insight into the modular infrastructure stack. And next, welcome to our fourth panel of ZK Day Singapore, where we will explore the realm of ZK VM and its implication on Ethereum scalability. And join me in welcome David Swatch, co-founder and CTO at Polygon, Daniel Wang, co-founder of Tycho, Yi Jian, co-founder at Scroll, Dr. Modo, co-founder at Seller Network and partner at IOSG, and last but not least, Xu Yaopeng, global head of BD at Linea.
We should
Okay, thank you everyone, and let's get the panel started. Good afternoon everyone. This panel is about ZK rollup and ZK technology in general, and we have the great panelists lined up here today. And my name is Mo, and I'm the co-founder of Seller Network, which is a blockchain interoperability protocol. Some of you probably use our bridge solution like C-Bridge. More recently, we have been venturing into ZK Allow with Bridges as a new initiative in the ZK co-processing space. I'm here on behalf of and by kind invitation of IOSG Venture Capital. And IOSG is a crypto-native investment firm. Over the past couple of years, IOSG has been investing in the crypto space in and around the Ethereum ecosystem, from scaling solutions, middleware to major application verticals. Now today we have a great lineup, and most of the panelists are my old friends. But still, let's do a quick round intro. First for everyone.
Hey guys, this is Xu Yao from Consensus. I think I'm the least technical person on this panel, so if there's any question that's technical, I volunteer to be skipped. But if you have a question about business, I'm more than happy to answer. I've been in the space for a few years, and we just recently launched a ZK EVM called Linea, and it's not pronounced as Linea. It's called Linea. Happy to chat more. I'm going to pass it on to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ye, I'm the co-founder of Scroll. I mainly do some ZK stuff, so I can maybe help answer more like ZK technical questions. And for Scroll, we are building a scaling solution for Ethereum, which provides very seamlessly experience for developers and users. So if you are a developer, you just copy paste your code, deploy on Scroll, and the experience like cheaper, faster, higher throughput, like our system. And yeah.
My name is Daniel Wang. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Taiko. So we are a little bit late to the game, but I think it's just about the right time. Taiko is trying to build a Type 1 ZK EVM, Ethereum ZK rollup, which is meant to be decentralized and permissionless. So if you have pooling hardware, you can join to pool Taiko blocks. If you want to propose blocks, you can propose blocks even just with your own transaction. So that's Taiko.
Hey guys, I'm David, one of the co-founders of Polygon and also the CTO. At Polygon we have multiple networks. We are announcing in these days this Polygon 2.0 vision. That's a set of proposals to the community. Probably you guys know the Polygon POS as the main network of Polygon as of today. We are upgrading to ZK Layer 2 the POS next year. And we recently, 6 months ago almost, we launched the ZK VM mainnet, which is a beta version, and we are already available in mainnet. We are growing the TVL transactions and onboarding many infrastructure partners, so we can become a strong DeFi hub very soon. So my role is also global CTO, and I'm leading this Polygon 2.0 implementation. Very happy to be here with you guys today.
We actually have 2 mics, sorry. Hello? Okay, all right, this actually works, great. So I guess the first question is that, there's no doubt that we have really come a long way in the ZK EVM development, the ZK rollup in the last couple of years. I still remember like approximately 3 years ago, people were still talking, is ZK EVM, ZK rollup even possible, right? Like the EVM compatibility and all that stuff. But we are at the verge of multiple kind of launches for ZK rollups, and we have seen some alpha launches in the space. I guess the first question is that, I guess for everyone in the panel is where are we on ZK EVM and ZK rollup in general, both in technology front, but also in the ecosystem and developer building community side, and what are some of the remaining challenges that you see in this space that need to be solved?
Thank you for adjusting the question. I can answer now. So from a consensus perspective, Linea, we're the second team, I think, after Polygon to work on ZK EVM. Linea is a project incubated by Consensus R&D. I think about 3 years ago, we actually disagree with Vitalik, who believed State China was going to scale Ethereum. We're like, actually, no, it's probably rollup. And I think it's really, I'm very pleased to see things played out. From back in the days where really nobody believed it, until now we have like a flushing ecosystem. To answer your question, I think from both the technical business perspective, I truly believe we're at a pivotal point. We're seeing different permutation of different rollup directions, right? You're seeing optimistic rollup that are going after the stack direction. I think Polygon is doing the same, and ZK Sync. And you're seeing players like us focusing on building an ecosystem. So technology, we're at a point where there are different directions you can go, and the more the better. And then from a business perspective, I think you guys heard from the previous panel, they're just like a flourishing ecosystem of different dApps, like gaming, social. I mean, DeFi is a bit more mature, but now they have to figure out cross-chain, and then they're using interoperability protocol like Stellar. So I think we're also reaching a pivotal point where like the technology can take more depth, but people are just figuring It looks a little bit chaotic, but I'm really like optimistic about it.
In terms of us, like we are early last year, like we launched our first testnet, which is pre-alpha testnet, and early this year we launched our alpha testnet. And over 1 month ago, like we launched our final stage before our mainnet. So our mainnet is coming very soon. So in terms of our ZK development, we are just last mile before mainnet. We have done a bunch of like security testing to kind of really battle test our system. We kind of replay all the transactions from different networks, Linear, Polygon, Binance, all those chains to replay in our testing environment. We spend millions of dollars in auditing with the best auditing company. We have a very strong security team to kind of trying to construct some test vector to attack our chain to see like because we have been code free, so I just doing more security testing, stress testing. That's the last step before our mainnet. And in terms of the kind of the bottleneck for ZK EVM in general, I think there are still a lot of unsolved problems. For example, like the performance is still not amazing enough, because to achieve the vision like where you can generate proof even like for Ethereum block, you need to generate proof within 1 block time, which is like 15 seconds. And no one like no ZK EVM is even close to that number. So I still need some kind of performance improvement, and this can come from some hardware acceleration, like there are like hardware companies building really fast ASICs, FPGA GPUs, like we are working with a bunch like SysAC, Excel, all those companies, and they are building hardware to make proof generation really faster, and also like trying to optimize there are big changes in proof system every half a year, and we are doing a lot of benchmarks for what is the best proof system to increase the performance. And in terms of the whole system, there are still a lot of unsolved problems, which, for example, you can construct some bad transaction with a lot of like catch check or really hard to prove output in this transaction, and it go over your ZK EVM capacity. So we need to find a way to chunk like large transaction into smaller ones to turn this you can't prove something into proving time is longer, and to make sure that you can prove everything. So there are still a lot of challenges there, and everyone like regardless months earlier launching or earlier than us or whatever, like we are on the same starting point, because everyone is not ready, everyone is in alpha, beta, whatever stage, and also we are in an early stage of ecosystem building and community building. And if you want to join and contribute, we have a lot of guidelines, and feel free to reach out to our team. And our ZK is built in a very open and community-driven way. So if you want to become part of the contributor, feel free to contribute.
So Tycho, from a testnet perspective, we launched 4 testnets already. We still have at least 3 to go. In terms of ZK, I think what we learned is that things will change a lot. I mean, back in 2018, when we engineered the blueprint, the first ZK rollup, we used like Growth 16. Not a lot of tools to be available at that time. So now if you look around, there are a lot of options, right? But none of those options are perfect. So the tooling is still the biggest problem in terms of writing circuits, and there are a lot of performance issues with all the backends, right? And even as Ian mentioned, if you carefully construct the layer 2 block, you can make the prover fail because there are too many constraints there or something. It's just not all the problems are solved. So in general, I think it's still in the very early stage for ZK to really solve the scalability problem. But we are on the right track, and you will see nice things happening gradually over time. So when we have multiple ZK rollups that can scale Ethereum by 100 or 1,000 times, then more issues will pop up, and we will fix those issues later on. But as of now, let's just try to make things happen as quickly as possible and fix problems later on, and try to watch out for new development in ZK. And this doesn't just take one team; it takes the entire Ethereum ecosystem to collaborate with each other to try those new ideas. So recently we tried the risk zero approach, which is really fun. I share this experience with a lot of people. We feel like if we can just avoid writing circuits directly and just write a stateless Rust program, that's cool, right? So that's what we
try to, what do we expect?
Yes, well at Polygon we are at beta mainnet currently. We launched at the end of March this year. Before that we launched the testnet October last year. And every network we launched was with a full prover implementer. So it took a long time to audit this prover because it's a very complex technology. We needed to build some languages to build this automatization from EVM equivalence to the prover side. And this audit, this security was something we wanted to take very seriously. So when we launched mainnet in CKVM, you could find a process to verify the prover. So you know that this prover is deployed, the prover is verified in the smart contract is the same prover that you are in the repository, and you have the audits linked. Every time we do an upgrade for improving some features or doing some kind of update, we do a delta audit. So security is very important topic for us. But we were focusing heavily on the prover side, because when we started this project 1.5 years ago, it was considered impossible, it was considered something non-practical, and we were just trying to make this happen from the back end. Then, what we face today is after the launch of the mainnet 6 months ago, 5 months ago, we are finding performance issues, because we were doing the front end, let's say the client was ensuring that the proofs were absolutely feasible to execute, because the worst situation you can have, as Daniel was saying, is that the prover gets stuck for some reason. This is the new consensus, is the prover, so you need to have something solid. We accelerated this process in mainnet, and we have already 750,000 proofs already in mainnet. So it never stopped. The prover is very solid, and this is we're very proud about this and very happy. So what's next for us is an upgrade in the client side, so we can go from the current performance to very much higher performance. So our modular vision, maybe we can talk about this later, it's separating the client side from the prover side, because what the user perceives is like similar to optimistic rollups. They have an interaction with a client. That's confirming transactions, creating blocks. And there's this backend process of proving that's happening after this block creation. From our perspective, we created a system that can spin a lot of provers. So the more load you have, the more provers you can spin, because you will need to prove more transactions. And this provides a linear cost for the user. So our cost model is very constant. And anyone here is facing the same situation. Data on chain is still expensive, but we can discuss about this later. But from our perspective, this solution is already available. We are onboarding major partners for DeFi operation, and we are super excited for the next performance upgrade that's coming.
Yeah, thanks for the great answers. I guess everyone kind of mentioned the two things that I want to kind of dig deeper a little bit. One is on the technology side, right? So the other is more on the adoption side. So on the technology side, I guess everyone kind of agree in the ZK space that the underlying technology and the underlying cryptographic research is developing at a really kind of fastest pace, right? So there is a lot of new things popping up, like folding, like very structured lookup table structures, like thread with small field, and all that's exciting stuff, right? So, but every one of the existing ZK EVM projects are built with almost like a snapshot of the technology stack at a certain point, right? So, but underlying technology is moving fast and moving forward. So I guess the question for more technical side of the question for our panelists is that how would you kind of deal with this kind of underlying shaping landscape of the ZK technology in general? How do you try to incorporate this into your current stack if you want to incorporate them? Or is there any specific interesting technologies or interesting directions that you guys are looking at the moment? So I guess we can start from,
So definitely, I fully agree. Just to add more context to this question. So in the past, half a year, like because there are more like pooling system coming out like every day, like maybe every week you see like new folding scheme and new start and new constructions, making your prover maybe sometimes become 2 times faster, 3 times faster, but there are also trade-offs and how you kind of choose between different protocols. And for us, we classify those different technologies into different categories and make the most important trade-off. For example, like one big change is like Snark in normal sense use large field, like it's based on elliptic curve, based on different like assumptions, and the other side is smaller field, which use fry, breakdown, or other error correcting code-based proving scheme. So one big decision, I think, among all the trend is that you first need to classify into whether you want to move into that direction or stay in this large field direction. And we are doing a bunch of benchmarks for like what we can benefit from this large field. So one potential direction for why large field is still matter is that because people usually complain large field because imagine that you have a program but every variable is on a very large finite field like 256 bits. So every computation is done like very slowly because you need to do those large modular arithmetic. But if you move to smaller field, all the arithmetic can fit into your CPU register because it's 32 bits, 64 bits. So like the native computation is way faster than smaller field. So, but the good thing about larger field is that firstly it's based on very traditional assumption, like KZG is well tested and the elliptic curve assumption has been tested for a long time. And but Fry, the other side of the proof system rely on some projection and some other security assumptions for proof system. And the other good thing is that there are new technology coming out like folding, which require elliptic curve because you need to kind of fold linear combine multiple instances together, and you need some homomorphism for your underlying cryptographic primitives, and that can only be done on elliptic curve. And the third thing is that you can use some really large lookup tables to kind of make witness generation process become faster and also simplify your computation. So that's the good thing about like large field, and we are doing more benchmark around like how fast this kind of using large lookup can give you, and how much like if you are pulling 100 catch checks, and like how does that compare like your performance between folding and smaller field. I think after you figure out this large distinction, then like all other technology will be easier to figure out because if you choose smaller field, it's easier for you to benchmark which polynomial commitment scheme is the best scheme among all of them. Like there is breakdown, there is free fry, there is Orion, all those polynomial commitment schemes. And then like if you figure out it's larger field, then you have to stick to some kind of more normal setup and with no large lookup table. So I think for us, the biggest difference is between two big directions, and definitely there are some other directions like ZKVM, building on ZKVM on top of ZKVM. But so far, what we see is that even for this zero, they need like 64 GPUs, like a GPU cluster, to generate proof for one block, which is not so acceptable in current setup. So that's why like we are still looking to like making it a specialized, because ZKVM is special enough to make a specialized circuit for that. So that's our thinking behind this, but we are still looking into like whether that can be performant someday, and you don't really need to write circuit yourself.
So Tycho also has researchers. We don't have too many. We have researchers, trying to get the most up-to-date information about the new algorithms, but we are also very cautious not to rush into it because we feel like it's okay to be late, but it's not okay to make the wrong decision. Also, we always assume that the proving system is just a component of the entire Tycho solution. For example, with the latest prototype design, we make sure one proof can be challenged by anyone, and then this proof can be overproven by more trustworthy proofs. So that's our approach of using like multi-proof or multi-validity proof to secure the chain. I think it's the very first I have seen in this space. I hope other layer 2s can give some feedback, and maybe we can adopt this solution altogether. The one direction that we pay special attention to is the continuation. We want to make sure in the future, do we really need to have high-end CPU or GPU to prove the blocks? Maybe we can just break down one single job into
like 1,000 chunks and then distribute over like home computers, right? So that's one direction that we are super excited about. But as I said, we don't want to rush into offering a solution, but we are carefully just following this new trend.
Yes, on our side, we have a very strong team in secret research also. We created last year this Prompt V2 foundation. It's a small field libraries for proving that most of these ideas are used in this CKB improver. Yeah, some of the teams in the space are also using these libraries and these concepts. It was our choice to work on a small field because our prover is very efficient in this model. But of course, some other techniques are coming, and we need to be open to improve. In fact, we are researching the next version, Prompt V3, is also coming, and we are considering to include these improvements in the prover in the next months. But of course, we are in this early stage where we are experimenting a lot with CK, and the focus initially was to prove that this is practical, and now we come to this optimization phase, because even the transaction cost for us is very cheap in terms of proving cost. It's like sub-10 to the minus 4 for an Ethereum transfer. It's almost nothing, but still there are many applications and many use cases we want to support with this proving technology, and this on us to continue improving. But we need to be flexible, and we need to see what's coming. There's a lot of innovation in the space, and we're happy to embrace it.
Okay, thank you. So on the, I guess, while we are rushing towards that exciting future of technology development, one thing is that many of the ZK rollup and ZK EVMs are launching or has launched, right? So I guess the question is, what is the playbook to attract a real world adoption, right? So real user adoption, because there have been playbooks in the past of migrating a lot of DeFi protocols into these rollup, into different layer 1, alternative layer 1, layer 2s. But because obviously we have seen that because of the nascent stage of the ZK technology, there are some trade-offs in the ZK rollup space, right? So like in that case, like how do you see or envision to attract adoption and build the ecosystem from it?
I'll be quick, I know we're running out of time. I think it's the most important thing for us to do is make sure the foundation, the technology foundation is robust. I do think there are other things we have to contribute as infrastructure player to the ecosystem. The way we think about wallet, the way we think about developer tool, like Daniel mentioned, the way we talk to normies about what crypto really is. So I think I welcome everybody to think technology is extremely, extremely important. Like I welcome everybody to think about the use case and how we talk about use case to the rest of the community.
Yeah, I will also be quick. So our vision is to build our ecosystem like an infinite garden, which means like we can't predict what can happen in our ecosystem. Anything can come, to realize, to make an impact on scope, to build whatever you want. And also because Ethereum has such a large existing developer ecosystem, so our job is similar to what Shua mentioned, making sure on the protocol layer you are super secure, super stable, and provide all the developer toolings, integrate with Chainlink and all the oracles, get what developer wants, and using Hexon and some other way to promote this vibe for building with the community and the developer centric, and then to kind of really bootstrap the ecosystem. And on the other hand, we also care about the real world use case. So that's why we travel to a lot of especially different corners of the world. So last month I spent 10 days in Africa talking about with the founders there, understanding, because those places are where crypto has real need, and understanding why they are using crypto as a layer 2, how can we help? So we pay a lot of attention to Vietnam, Latin America, Turkish, and a lot of places like that, and trying to get some real world use case. Because I think blockchain is not something on the fly, not just for large whales, but it actually needs to be on the ground for real users.
So our mentality is that you should build with us. Our code base is open source. We try to be open, to be inclusive, and we try to provide options. But we try not to say, okay, this is the best layer 2 you should use, because we understand different applications have different level of security requirements, right? If you transfer $1,000, do you really need ZK at all, you can be optimistic a little bit, right? So I think our approach is to make sure that you can build your own chain with our stack by configuring the chain using different validity proofs. So I said this before, I wish you can try Taiko and launch your own app chain, and then you can deploy your more secure app into the Taiko canonical chain and use multiple ZK proofs to secure the asset.
Yes, for Polygon, the strategy of adoption is based into this new announcement we did of Polygon 2.0, where we have this vision of multiple chains connected by ZK proofs, and we really want to provide this bridge to liquidity between chains. So today you can deploy CDK, your own stack, in 10 minutes. You can deploy your provers, you can start building on these vertical app chains that will be interconnected. Today we have a bridge that supports multiple layer 2s, so we can move assets between different layer 2s without going through layer 1. And we have this vision of this aggregation layer where we can combine these proofs to do atomic transactions and composability between chains. So this is the strategy. For us, the ZK TVM is the ZK rollup, and we want to attract DeFi and liquidity into this chain. We have all these partnerships going on. We already have POS, which is the most used chain in the world probably, in terms of transactions per second and number of users. So we want to build this ecosystem natively because we don't find any specific use case that will drive this. Today the TVL and this DeFi is kind of the comparison between chains, but last week we were in Korea, and Korea is gaming industry is crazy. So we are not so sure what will be the best the next use case that will bring massive adoption of Web3. Probably the value of transactions is different, but all the users count. And we want to bring Polygon. The objective of Polygon is bring Web3 to the masses and massive adoption. So we are inviting other layer 2s and layer 1s to join this ecosystem of liquidity, and some announcements are coming in the next weeks around this. So very exciting times for this adoption.
Cool, thank you. So while we have a lot more questions that can be discussed among this panel, but I think we're running out of time. So let's give a round of applause for excellent panelists here.
Sincere appreciation to the panelists for giving deep insight about ZKVM and the potential impact of it on Ethereum and the wider blockchain landscape. And now let's move to the fifth panel of the day, where we will focus on the crucial topic of privacy, safety, and sovereignty on the blockchain. And warm welcome to Henry Spencer, co-founder of ZK Hold'em, Alex Prudence, CEO of Alier, Nicole Stapler, co-founder and core dev at Elusive, Jonathan, head at ABCDE Advisory, and last but not least, Dennis, CSO of My Network.
Thanks everyone for having us. So maybe we can just kickstart with the panel and just do a short introduction about ourselves, what are we working on, and what are we building right now. Yeah. Maybe we can start from Alex.
Yeah, hey everybody, pleasure to be here. I'm Alex. I'm the CEO of Alio, so layer 1 blockchain that enables ZK smart contracts. You can kind of think of it as Zcash plus Ethereum. So I've been the CEO of Alio for a year or so. I've been at the company for about 3. I also run ZPrize, which is an industry-wide collaboration in accelerating ZK cryptography by hardware acceleration. So before this, I was in venture. I worked at Basis and Zcrypto.
Hey guys, my name is Nico. I'm one of the co-founders and co-developers of Elusive, and Elusive is also a privacy solution with which you can plug and play privacy into existing general purpose blockchains.
Hey guys, my name is Henry, and I'm the co-founder of
ZK-only. So we are building a world's first fully on-chain tax-only platform powered by zero knowledge proof. So basically, by using our ZK Shuffle smart contract, we decentralize the entire cost shuffling calculating process, so that for the first time ever, you will be able to enjoy a poker game that you can be 100% sure is not there. So yeah, that's what we're building. And we actually have a booth back over there. So if you guys are interested, I'm free to chat with you guys after this panel.
Hi everyone, I'm Dennis and I'm the Chief Security Officer of Mine Network. The Mine Network is a decentralized data lake that actually focuses in privacy protection. And the technology we enjoy, including privacy computing for homomorphic encryption, and we also do end-to-end protection to protect all the data.
So I'm John, the head of advisory for ABCD. So ABCD, the Web3 focused investment fund that do early stage deals and are typically very technical and tech focused. So we do deals like AA, ZK, data, infrastructure. Yeah. So I think without further ado, we can kickstart the panel and let's move on to our first question. Maybe the first question would be, why is on-chain privacy important and why should it matter to individual organization? I think we can do this like more of a freestyle manner. So anyone that feels free, just hop on and just answer the question.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I can start. So for me, whenever I talk to friends who are in Web 2 or who aren't in Web 3, and I tell them I work in Web 3, and I tell them more specifically I work on privacy, most of the time from all of them, it's, wait, what? Web 3 isn't private by default? And when I explain to them that it isn't, I never have had the reaction of someone saying, oh, that's awesome. I wish traditional financial systems were like that. So that already tells you that for pretty much everyone in the world, be it institutionals, be it individuals, finances, which in my opinion is the key use case for blockchains, are something that is just inherently private. You wouldn't ask someone on the street what their bank account is or what stocks they bought recently. So for that reason, I believe that if we really want to make blockchain go mainstream and really help people all over the world, privacy isn't just a nice feature to have. It's something that you need to have in order to onboard institutions that want to keep their trading strategy secret, or even just people that want to buy a coffee without leaking their entire financial history to the whole world.
Yeah, I think that was a great point. I think for the financial, just to restate what Nico said very eloquently, I think for the traditional financial use cases, the UX of finance is private by default. In crypto, I think everything's public by default. It's very different. I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen DeFi manage to bridge the gap between degen finance and real finance. Because I think most traditional institutions and many large investors, including one that I used to work for, care deeply about who can see what transactions they execute and when. And in addition to the financial use cases, I also think there's other use cases, specifically around identity and authentication, that I think privacy can enable more consumer protection or personalized control that it's not possible to do in a decentralized manner on the traditional web. So I think there's actually several reasons that privacy is essential if we want to see blockchains become mainstream.
Yeah, for the users in Web3, we seems to be anonymous. However, actually, because all the data in the blockchain, actually they are the open ledger. All the transactions, they are connected. So as long as in one transaction we leak our real identity, then actually all of our history actions from the first transaction when you enter the Web3, actually all the data will be released to others. So for this open things, and it also deals with our financial data that actually have a huge demand for the privacy. Actually, in this year, Vitalik, he mentioned the 3 transitions, and he says that for Israel, it will fail if the 3 transactions doesn't come. And among these 3 transactions, one of them is privacy. He said that we need private transfer of the property in the Ethereum. So that's my opinion.
I think the three panelists here have covered most of why we need privacy here, but like for Zero Hold'em specifically, like what we're building is a online poker platform. So for poker, obviously you cannot build it on a public blockchain because it doesn't really make sense if your opponent will be able to see your whole card information. So I guess that counts as privacy as well. So like for Zero Hold'em, like it's really simple. It's just how we mimic the actual world. How like when people play poker in the actual world, how that functions. Like you won't be able to see your opponent's cards. You won't be able to see the community cards until it's being opened up. So I think that's just a base layer for any imperfect information that's to be built on chain on the basis level. So
yeah, thanks for establishing the importance of ZK privacy. I think that follows up to our next question as to how you guys think should be held responsible for on-chain privacy, and exactly be it on the infra layer, the application layer, or even the user level. Like who should actually be held responsible?
Yeah, I think a system where you can have it as private and permissionless by default is what we want, right? I think this is why why we decided to build Aleo as a layer 1 protocol. Actually, fun fact: when we started Aleo at the beginning, we contemplated it as a layer 2 rollup. And the reasons why we decided not to pursue that path was two. One, that privacy on the account model of Ethereum is quite difficult, which is why none of the ZK rollups, even though it's ZK, actually none of them give you privacy. Right? It's all about the scalability property of the snark. So privacy in that model is just difficult. And then two, the performance hit that you take, right? And really when there's a performance hit, as often is the case in ZK, oftentimes there is a desire to kind of centralize to some kind of third-party prover. So then you kind of offload, to your question, you offload the responsibility of privacy to a third party. But I think what makes blockchains special in terms of network or computer architecture is that individuals have sovereignty. Right, so individual sovereignty, can be exerted through the network at the furthest edge in the graph, right? And I think we have a lot of systems already that give us privacy. I mean, we talked about the traditional financial system. My bank is actually pretty good. Most people can't see my bank account today. So it's like, if I am willing to trust an authority to keep things private, we already have solutions for that. What I don't think we have solutions for, though, is a network that is decentralized, permissionless, and we have control over what we share and who.
Yeah, definitely great points from Alex, and I agree on the most of the parts, just in terms that it should be at the infrastructure layer and not at the application or even user layer. On one hand, of course, because it makes it easier, like the points that Alex mentioned, but one other light I think is quite relevant here as well, is that it makes it more easy to standardize. Because look at Web 2, for example. A lot of the privacy stuff, SSL, HTTPS, is also not the infrastructure layer. The reason being that simply a lot of this relies on cryptography, where even the smallest error can lead to you losing all of your privacy or worse. So I believe for this reason it's also important to have it at the infrastructure layer, because that way you can ensure that everyone uses a unified model of privacy that's proven to work, and you don't have to worry about one application doing it this way and another doing it this way and potentially flawed implementations.
Yes, I think those are all great points. Like definitely we need to standardize how we keep privacy to blockchain in a standard way. So, but I think for ZK Hold'em, we are a little bit unique example is that we define privacy in a pretty specific way. We use this zero knowledge proof technology in a very specific way to just control a little bit of information that won't be able to show to your opponent. So I think actually we're just like Alex mentioned, in the traditional world, traditional online poker, they don't have the privacy issue. Their issue is that they are too private. Everything is being controlled in a centralized server, and obviously there's no privacy issue. But the point is that it's not decentralized enough. So right now we are basically going from one extreme to another extreme, where we are 100% decentralized. But then how can we bring privacy to this?
thing so that it can work. Like traditionally, the most basic need for a poker game to work now is like the hardest thing to do. So I think for Zika Hold'em, we are basically just trying to explore the options that we can do to rebuild this really fundamental, I guess, element of poker on blockchain. And I think, by doing that, we're actually, paving ways for a lot of different type of imperfect information games. Because a lot of games require shuffling, a lot of games they require, like Dark Forest is a really good example. There's you want to keep the game fun. There's always a part of the information you want to keep to yourself. You don't want to reveal to your opponents. And by building Zika Hold'em, we're actually trying out different options that we thought of, and we are realizing a lot of stuff that hasn't been realized before. So we basically help see which way is the good way for the entire fully on-chain game industry to go forward. So I'm really happy and I'm really proud of our team to be in this position to help doing all of this. So yeah.
Actually, from the perspective of regulation, I think the answer to the question is that depends. Because the organization of the data is different in different applications. According to the data protection law, such as the Europe GDPR and the China personal information protection law, actually they all say that the one who collects data is responsible to protect the privacy of the data. So if some application they just collect data and keep the data in a centralized database, then they will be responsible for that kind of data. And however, if that application is fully decentralized and each user owns his own data, then the end user himself is responsible for his own data, own privacy data. And the next question is how they can keep their data to be privacy. Then I think their responsibility is to choose infrastructure which has the features or functionalities which can provide the privacy protection. So that's my opinion. So they would choose the infrastructure.
Thanks everyone for your answer. So I think the next follow-up question would be, in terms of design in blockchain development, what do you guys think are actually the key principles? For example, like for Alex, you're building Helio, what do you think are the key principles behind building Helio? And for yourself, as a DApp, what goes into your mindset when building apps and layers that are privacy focused?
I just got handed the mic, but I think actually maybe he should start because I think what you said just in the question there is very important. Like, we have a tendency in crypto to start, and I'm the CEO of a layer 1, so I'm as guilty as anyone. We have a tendency to start in crypto from the bottom level of the infrastructure stack and build up to somewhere up there where there's an application. And I really think, I've been convinced now after years of seeing the space, investing in the space, and building the space, that I think that's a bit of a flawed approach. I think it's really, really important to have in mind a use case that you're trying to serve. I could reference any number of Steve Jobs videos where he talks about this, like in the 90s, right, when the internet was brand new. And I think it's really important, So what we think about when building Aleo is we always have choices over what new feature to include or what opcodes to include in our language, right? And I think what we try and do is keep in mind, hey, what are we seeing on the network? What is the feedback we're getting from the community about what types of use cases are really interesting? Gaming is a use case that some of the developers who on Aleo are really focused on. Identity is another one. And I think to a certain extent, we really try and integrate that. And then with that end use case in mind, given the constraints that I mentioned ago of permissionlessness and privacy, I view those as constraints. Those are not something we compromise on. So then the dimension is about performance, right? Because performance in this setting can be extremely challenging, especially depending on the size of circuit, right? So really focusing on, optimizing and making the stack as efficient as possible in order to make the user experience, which once again, going back to the user experience, the end application, like that's a lot of what we focus on. That's also why we started Z-Prize. So the shirt I'm wearing is Z-Prize, not Alio. Z-Prize was meant to be, because I think, if you look at the history of cryptography on the web, it wasn't until you started seeing the introduction of instructions baked into the Intel CPU where AES became basically cost-free, or encryption operations became cost-free, and I think we're going to start seeing that same thing in crypto and in ZK specifically. But yeah, for me, I guess the quick answers are like, we consider the end use case and the user experience, and then performance according to that.
Yeah, so for Elusive, definitely also big focus on the UX. However, one thing that we thought was quite important for the UX was also composability with existing systems. Because if you look at the blockchain space today, like Alex said, there's a lot of people or tons of projects start really from the lowest possible layer. And as a result of that, if you check coin market cap, there's hundreds of L1s. However, there's probably only a handful that actually have significant usage. So for that reason, when we designed Elusive, we wanted to build a solution with which users can, in the best case, continue using whatever protocols they're already using, be that their favorite DEX, their favorite lending protocol, their favorite whatever protocol. And in the best case, continue using that one on whichever chain they're using with the least amount of effort needed to switch to a different chain. So definitely composability we thought was, very important. However, another one that we also kept in mind as we designed and are working on Elusive is compliance. Because although everyone hates this word in crypto because it's way less fun than all the other parts, it is something that's relevant as well, especially in the privacy space. Because even if it's not because regulators are telling us or whatever, I think no one here in this room wants to build privacy solutions because they want to support criminals or bad actors or whatever. So for that reason, when we designed Elusive, we also wanted to make sure we came up with a system with which we can, build some sort of self-defense against bad actors that, of course, doesn't require us to sacrifice decentralization.
Yeah. So both of you guys are talking about like user experience, but I assure you, for the application community members, they're much more picky on the UX side than the infrastructure like community members. Like literally, like when we just built like ZK and like our first demo, like we are super excited because we're using this, we specifically use case ZK circuit, and we have to build our own smart contract to do everything. And then we think this is in technology wise we're making a huge step. But then like in the end like people are asking us, it's taking like 5 seconds for just one shuffle. Then how are you gonna convince people to play on your platform? It doesn't really make sense. So it was really I guess a shock, not as a shock, but as a reminder at that time, for us, of course, we have a really, our tech team is a really, gigantic tech team, they have cryptography and stuff, but in the end, like, if we want to build a customer-facing product, then it's really the really boring part, like how can you make the latency lower? How can you even lower the gas cost? Even that's the best we can do. We just have to push again and again on that user experience side, and hopefully in the end with better infrastructure we'll be able to get to a level of Web3, Web2 broker platforms. But right now, to be honest, we still have a long way to go to there. And we optimize our smart contract, we optimize our ZK circuit, we choose really good layer 2 solutions that offer really low latency and low gas costs. We are trying to build our own app chain. We're trying everything, but still we have a long way to go. But I think for us specifically, user experience is really the top one consideration.
In my opinion, the key principle for data protection is trustless. Actually, previously we talked about that some centralized platforms, they are too private. However, I think being private does not equal to a good practice of privacy protection. they are not actually equal. Because you can see that in Web 2.1, we have a lot of data breaches every year. We have a lot of breaches because in such kind of centralized data solution, actually all the users, they do not have any choice but to hand over all of their privacy secret to the centralized platform. Then the platform will be compromised, no matter from inside or from outside, maybe by exploiting vulnerabilities or by phishing, the platform being compromised. Then the data will just be gone, and eventually maybe to the black market. So I think a good practice would be just like in Web3, the data will be decentralized, and every user, they can take control of their own privacy data. So actually, in my network, we are working on the end-to-end encryption, so that every user, they protect their own data by using their own private key in their wallet. So I think that will be a solution to maybe for the data protection.
Thanks everyone. So I think by now we have understand the importance and benefit of on-chain privacy. So I think the follow-up question would be, why do you guys think that we haven't had much access to on-chain privacy solutions, and what are the obstacles that we have to overcome in order to have widespread adoption of on-chain privacy?
I can go quickly because I think I sort of answered a little bit in the previous question. I think we need focus on what applications people are interested in, so then we can optimize the performance of the prover stack on that in a permissionless way, which is much more challenging. And of course, maybe it's permissionless. Maybe I guess let's unpack here. I think there's a couple different modes that you can imagine this playing out. One being where it's like, hey, the client is generating proofs, or the client is verifying proofs, right? So we talked about trustless systems. Trustlessness is maybe another principle that we care about here. And the beauty of cryptography and zero-knowledge cryptography in particular is that the client can verify a computation was correct, right? So it's like, in addition to keeping something private, you can verify the computation was correct. So I think there's a lot of different ways those circuits can look. A lot of different ways. There's many different use cases I can imagine. And do you want the client generating the proofs? Do you want the client to verify a proof generated by a powerful prover, right? Potentially, you can still have a privacy-preserving system with a third-party prover if you integrate other privacy-preserving techniques like multi-party computation. But yeah, I think I'm tempted to say performance, but really I think it's more of a focus and drilling down on, hey, what's holding back ZK? It's the killer application for ZK for the user, where thousands of people are clamoring to sign up. Because I think once you have that demand, once we find that use case, all of the infrastructure is going to fall into place underneath it to make it faster, better, cheaper.
Yeah, so for me, I think for this question, my answer is pretty much the same as the previous one, and along the same lines of what Alex said as well, which is basically having good applications for privacy tech. Namely, the reason being that with the current state of affairs, at least for many things, users have to pick between the best possible, dApp to do something, or a private version of it, which is significantly worse. So for example, for a swap, you can pick to either do a swap with Uniswap or 1inch or something and have great performance, great price matching, especially because the teams who work on these things have spent years optimizing this very use case. Alternatively, I'm not too aware of too many, specifically 100% private dark pools, but I'm sure they probably don't have as good performance as Uniswap or 1inch does. So for that reason, I think one of these aspects, like I said before, is definitely composability with existing applications to make sure that you can get the best of both worlds, both the privacy part and the years of development that we shouldn't just throw out the window in existing dApps. Additionally, again, not the nicest thing to talk about, but I think compliance, especially since the whole Pareto Cash debacle, has become a more and more relevant topic as well. Because if we look at what privacy app probably had the most volume or users, it used to be Tornado Cash, but there's a reason no one uses it now anymore, because people are scared that they'll get in trouble or that they'll get their funds frozen or they won't be able to interact with certain applications anymore if they use one of these privacy protocols. And I think solving that takes two aspects. Like on one hand, like I said previously, building solutions with which we can defend against bad actors, but on the other hand, also fixing up the image a bit, getting people to understand that privacy is a fundamental right and something that is important for loads of use cases that don't have anything bad associated with them.
Yeah, I think there's just one thing I want to add on is definitely the education side. So I mean, for us, we're an application, like consumer-facing application. We just, basically at this point, everything that we are doing is that trying to onboard, let's forget about the Web2 people, just Web3 people. Like 90% of people, they don't really understand like how ZK works. Like why do you claim to be ZK, and how does that make your application like more decentralized compared to the traditional ones? So I think that's basically what we have been doing.
Just leave
basically my job is that. So that education is definitely the thing that we need to improve.
Yeah, I think the reason is from the demand side, not from the technology side. Because I think in Web3, the data currently the data in Web3 are not very diversified. They are mainly just the financial data. And for the financial data, privacy is important, but it's not the top priority, because the top priority for property is the ownership. Then secondly, maybe it would be the privacy of the data. However, let's look into Web2. In Web2, we just pay a lot of attention in privacy because that we have a lot of our daily life data. It directly connects to our real physical person. So that data will be, the privacy will be the top priority for that kind of data. So I think in Web3, as its development and more good apps be put into use, and we have a lot of our personal daily life data in Web3, then at that time, I think privacy may be paying a lot of more attention than nowadays. That's how I think.
Unfortunately, with that's all the time we have. So thank you everyone for your insights and sharing your thoughts. Let's give everyone a round of applause.
Blockchain, also addressing the challenges and opportunities that arise in the decentralized system. And now it's time to conclude the panel sessions with the last panel of the day, VC's perspective. And pleasure to have Raghav, research analyst at Longhash Venture, Louis Song, partner at 7X Ventures, Han Cheng, investment VP at Crescendo Ventures, and Michelle Yi at Beachin Ventures.
This side from the investment team at Longhash Ventures. Pleasure to be here.
Hans. I'm part of the venture team at Sando Ventures.
Alright, let's dive deep into the topic. So let's dig your mind. What is your perspective on zero knowledge and modularity? And what fuels the current interest in this technology within the blockchain space? And what factor has guided your focus towards this area?
So I think we all started focusing on Web3 with the promise of decentralization. But with time we obviously realized there was some challenges in decentralized system. As you tend to decentralize more, there's some latency and there's communication overhead. So there are a few use cases which we essentially cannot scale using decentralized ecosystems. And I feel that's where ZK comes in quite handy, whereby you have the ability to do verifiable computation, and you could essentially move certain use cases which are not so feasible on blockchain to off-chain and then be able to prove them on-chain. So I see verifiable compute being one of the strongest aspects of zero knowledge, which is enabling a lot of applications and use cases which were so far not so scalable. And obviously privacy is another factor which really helps in the moving this narrative forward. I think modularity is really interesting because it allows us to create specialized layer and enables great minds to focus on those specialized aspects. And modularity not only in terms of the blockchain design but also modularity within the ZK proving ecosystem. So you have the ZK front end and you have the ZK proving back end. So by modularizing those, we are moving at a very rapid pace, so you could essentially maybe swap out the backend, put a new backend which is much more optimized for a particular use case. And the way we are looking at it is ZK is more of an enabler. It's not an end game, but it's an enabler for a lot of use cases which for us so far were not so feasible on blockchain.
Yeah, I think for ZK and modularity space, I'm specifically interested in how the ZK technology we are using in the modularity space. So if you are doing deep research in certain area, I'm happy to have a chat with you guys to understand more. The first thing is how to replace the fraud proof using ZK proof. So like for all the OP rollup right now, they are using like fraud proof. But how they can use the ZKVM to generate ZK proof for all their transactions for OP rollup. That's the first area I'm interested in. The second area is in the share sequencer area. Everyone now is still using fraud proof to get the finality for the share sequencer for the sequencing and for the execution. And how can we replace the fraud proof in this share sequencer, decentralized sequencer area with ZK proof? That's kind of like some project like ReZero, like other guys are trying to solve it. If you have any kind of idea about that, I'm super interested to talk to you guys. And then the third is for the decentralized sequencing and share sequencing, how we can use add-on ZK technology on this share sequencing side. That's the second thing I mentioned. The third thing I mentioned is for the DA. So for the DA specific part, how can we add the extra layer on top of current DA layer to protect the data privacy? So that's another area I'm interested. So these are three areas I'm interested in the modularity and ZK space. If you have any kind of project or research, I'm happy to chat.
Yeah, so it's actually a very interesting question because we've seen like a significant with adoption around ZK rollups, ZK proofs in general, but also modularity, right? And I think, that's been going on for the past 1 to 2 years, and even like today, right? If we zoom out from an investment landscape, other ecosystems like DeFi, gaming, dApps in general have been struggling to really survive in this current market sentiment. Whereas if you look at infrastructure, it's been thriving, right? And well, that's both reflected in the valuation, but also the technology, right? From a more fundamental perspective, I think Raghav already briefly mentioned it. With the Essential and Ethereum, like scalability has always been an issue, right? We've been using various, solutions, side chains, Plasma, state channels, right? And so far it seems, roll-ups do have that leading narrative, like whether you're using optimism style, right, or optimistic style, or ZK style, fraud validity proofs. now we also have this modular kind of angle where basically it's like Lego blocks, like segmenting all these layers, right? So whether that's DA, consent, settlement, and execution, right? You have basically more custom, modular, flexible environment to, build what the specific project or company actually needs, right? So I think with, the modular, the ZK stuff, that's actually, going to be very interesting going forward. Yeah, and it will actually tap and disrupt like different industries. Yeah.
Thank you for shedding light on the driving force on ZK and modularity. It definitely solves the problem of scalability problem and also privacy problem. So let's dive deep into the technology. Do you consider zero-knowledge proof essential for the success of the modular spaces, or do you believe that modular concepts can thrive independently, possibly by employing alternative techniques?
Sure. So I think that's a very interesting question. I don't see zero knowledge being essential for modularity. I think I would argue the other way around, that modularity in fact is becoming more and more essential for zero knowledge. So let's say you look at Mandarin Network, they're using Celestia for data availability, they're using modified OP stack, but they have a universal zero knowledge interpreter as well. So I think ZK cannot be used for each and every stack, right? So you need to have ZK only for a particular specialized use case. And hence, modularity, in my opinion, is what enables ZK. If you look at, Kakarot, for example, we have so many ZK EVMs and they have faced quite a lot of challenges because building Ethereum EVM is not so ZK friendly. But what they did is they used the Cairo VM from Starknet ecosystem and just implemented EVM on top using Cairo language. That's a clear case of modularity, right? Like your EVM is completely abstracted away from the ZK proving framework. So I think modularity is definitely required for the success of zero-knowledge proof. And I'll just try to keep it short.
I'm not sure the relation between the ZK and the modularity. So I only can say like areas in modularity may have the ZK technology involved. So for example, for the ZK rollups, they probably use the DA layer, no matter it's Celestia, AVIL, or even DA. Or it's in the sequencing area I mentioned before. They may use ZK proof to get very fast fidelity in the high frequency trading or gaming space. And another thing is like because if we have so many execution layer or ZK execution layer, and when they all generate ZK proof, we need to verify the on-chain, but verification for these so many proof is the cost very high, the speed very slow. That reason why like the sovereign labs, they are investing in some of the proof aggregation technique. Basically they aggregate all the ZK proof from different kind of execution layer and then to combine to one proof and verify the on-chain, the cost is really low. So that's the area I can think about how ZK will apply in the modularity space, but in general I don't think those two have much relations.
Yeah, I echo the question. So or with the previous panelists, I think when you say it's essential, you're basically implying that modularity's success is relying on ZK, right? So, and I think these two verticals can be segregated and they can actually thrive independently, right? So, very good example. And I do think, right, they can separate or they can thrive independently, but I think with ZK, ZK keys or ZK proofs, they can actually accelerate or support certain elements, right? So an example that I've been looking into is, you have the OP stack, right? And obviously that has gained significant traction with Caldera and some other rollup as a services. But there's recent announcement made by ZK Sync and they introduced ZK stack, right? So it's a ZK competitor of the OP stack, but basically it's with the same intentions, right? So I mean, there's been some discussions around layer freeze, like building on top of layer 2, first safe proof, restrictive scaling, and basically where, I mean, with StarkNet, so Superchain from Optimism, Orbit, Nitro from Arbitrum, and Hyperchains from ZK Sync, they're all working towards an environment where you have layer freeze. And these essential components, they basically introduce a more modular composable framework, right? So for instance, going back to the ZK stack, its intentions is to give, whether you're a DeFi application or you're gaming or you're social or whatever, right? You can actually operate in such an environment where you can, based on your needs, right? So if you are a game and you want to build a fast, high throughput game, you need to have these scalable connections, right? But if you're DeFi and you want composability, you can do that as well, right? That environment allows you to actually have custom modular kind of solutions, right? So I think in such a situation where you have, whether the OP stack or using ZK stack, you can actually create these very custom solutions, right? And we can even think of bank solutions, right? So private blockchains where, for instance, you have JP Morgan with Onyx, and maybe Big Four or Visa, MasterCard launching their own custom, fixed income products or their own traditional products, right, to actually thrive in these L3s. So I think that's where, for instance, the ZK stack, so a ZK solution could be very much complementary to a more modular environment.
Thank you for sharing the perspective on synergy and independence of these spaces. So let's move from technical to practical. Could you highlight the most promising use case for zero knowledge and modularity and their intersection as you see today? Is there a confirmed product market fit, or is it predominantly driven by enthusiasm?
Yeah, I mean, confirmed product market fit is something every founder would want. I think we are pretty far from there. I think, just saying that we have the products are always evolving, so I don't see there being a confirmed product market fit, but I do see a lot of promising use cases which are emerging. So scaling and privacy are obviously the ones which we have seen in the past few years made a lot of significant strides. What I'm quite bullish on at the moment is for example, on-chain storage proofs, being able to query, any historical data and doing arbitrary combinations. So being able to prove those arbitrary combinations on-chain is quite interesting. Something that I'm excited about, which may take quite a long time to reach fruition, is something, like being able to prove that data coming from an IoT device is authentic. So let's say you have a temperature monitor or temperature recording IoT device just next to an airport, and they need to confirm whether the data coming is correct or not, whether it's coming from the correct location or not. So right now we are still in very early exploration stages of ZK. Once we reach a stage where verification and proving is fast enough, where they can run on very simple circuits, I think we'll reach a point where ZK will be used for a lot of verifiable compute. And it's not just blockchain. I do see a lot of potential in use cases outside Web2 as well. So for example, very simply, auditable databases. So if anything has been changed in a particular database, you could log those changes, generate a proof, and then verify on chain. So there are quite a lot of promising use cases that are coming up. And as I mentioned earlier, modularity as a concept obviously has existed long before blockchain even came into the picture. So that's a fundamental concept with which a lot of systems have been designed so that it's easier to maintain and grow and iterate over them. I think it's essential to keep that in mind so that you're able to adapt as and when new ZK proving frameworks come, new backend comes, new optimization comes. On-chain storage proofs, IoT devices, and then obviously privacy being able, and ZK identity is another area that I'm quite bullish on. So, yeah.
So for the DA space, for the modularity space, I think already initial use case you can see DA is quite mature, and also there are a lot of execution layer there. And also now several people trying to do the shared sequencer there, but not sure how to get adopted. And with shared sequencer layer, they may have another layer to get faster fidelity. And also for the ZK stuff, I think there's a lot of hype in the ZK space right now. I can say all the ZK-L2 probably have a use case, and the general ZK VM will have use case. And also for others, ZK coprocessor, storage proof, and I'm not sure. I think eventually ZK VM probably will do the storage proof, and also they will do like the coprocessing by themselves. So, but I still feel it will be 3 to 5 years to go, and the next 1 to 2 years definitely have no traction for most of like the top-notch ZK projects.
Yeah, no, again, I do kind of share the similar thoughts. So I think there's a lot of froth and a lot of enthusiasm around the ZK stuff. Because obviously, I think being in venture means like you're taking calculated risks to anticipate like a maximum return, right? It's probability, right? So I think with venture capital or angel investors, right? So if we talk about modularity and ZK stuff, a lot of that is actually unproven, right? Where like if you are really pioneering the research, like you're reading academic papers, right? And we often have to kind of, acknowledge that the academic stuff, like when you turn them into actual products, like the outcomes are going to be quite different, right? Because there's a lot of like external factors that you don't, calculate or that you actually can't kind of frame in these outcomes. But yeah, I do want to also elaborate, like when we talk about like tangible, specific, products that ZK actually or modularity can actually enhance, right? So I do think like the storage proofs are a very good example, right? So Roderick also talked about it. With the storage proofs, right? So in traditional systems, right? Smart contracts on the very base level, they need input, right? So if we look at oracles, they're basically the perfect solution to input like external data, especially if you want to communicate with the real world events, right? So all the stuff that's happening in the real world, and you want to bridge them with blockchains. But obviously these are centralized, right? So being in crypto, we're talking about like removing the middleman and being more transparent. So with the introduction of like storage proofs, right, in some aspects, it can actually replace or improve like the Oracle solution, right? Because with storage proof, they're basically indexing like a database, and blockchain is, best like example for a database. But the thing with these like size proofs, like you need to kind of verify them on chain. And the issue of that is that obviously whenever you want to do that on chain, it becomes very computational, like heavy, and it's also very expensive. So it's not a scalable business or a model. So this is a specific situation where you actually need, star proofs or star proofs, right? So ZKP in that sense, because in that sense, like you can actually, compress the data, and now, it actually changed like the Oracle, site, but also makes a specific area more scalable, right? So I think in these specific situations, like ZK proofs are actually useful.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So Louis talked about like nowadays there's not much use case, but in 3 to 5 years there will be. So we can do some prediction in 3 to 5 years. Where do you foresee the combined utilization of the knowledge and modularity evolving in ways that are currently less common?
Oh, I think I shared this already. I think for the sequencing part, they can use, for the optimistic rollup, probably they will use the ZK proof to replace draw proof, the first one. The second one is that they are using ZK proof to get a faster fidelity for the shared sequencing part. And on others, like and also for the proof aggregation part, you can aggregate all the proof and into a single proof to verify the on-chain, and that will be the cost is very low, it's much cheaper. And in which other areas? Probably in map space, like the ME-based space, now Flashbots we're trying to build Swap, which is like the private mempool. They are using PE like at this moment. And if we can optimize ZK and to basically have ZK have the lower cost than PE, then probably you can still use the map space. And then for the ZK in the like the outside of crypto space, I don't think they are much kind of the initial scenario can use ZK, because the cost perspective ZK is so higher than PE, and also even though PE have the single point of failure issue, but in most private scenarios they don't really care. So that reason why I think maybe in the next 3 to 5 years ZK will still in the crypto space and in those areas I mentioned.
That's quite interesting. I wish I had a crystal ball to see what use cases will emerge in the next 5 years. But I think quite a lot of focus at the moment is optimizing on the ZK proof generation and verification, because as we've all discussed multiple times, quite a lot of most significant challenges, the cost associated with zero knowledge proofs, making it not so practical for a lot of use cases. So for the short term, we clearly see, as Optimism is working with O1 Labs and Risk Zero for their fraud proofs, ZK-based fraud proofs, they might pivot to ZK-based validity proofs. So I think the initial kind of focus will stay on scaling privacy and the use cases which we already discussed. In the long run, I'm really excited, founders to come up with very interesting and innovative ideas or applications which leverage ZK only for a small company. For example, a company is using zero knowledge proofs for building a CAPTCHA-like service so that bots can be avoided from interacting with smart contracts. The typical Web2 capture cannot work with smart contracts because you don't necessarily need a UI interface to interact with smart contracts. So that's a very interesting use case that could be enabled. So I think in the medium term, we would want more and more such innovative use cases and applications coming on top which solve very, very specific problems. But that's mostly possible once you have a certain level of optimization in the proving, in the verification, the memory consumption, and the hardware requirements for all of these. Once we have that, then I believe there's definitely a lot of potential for zero knowledge to move outside the blockchain space as well. But yeah, for example, ZK capture, that's specific to blockchains because you need bots. You don't want bots interacting with your smart contract. So such kind of use cases do excite me. And the reason that this space is very interesting is it's so experimental. We are not always sure what will work, what will not work. But at the same time, you have to think a little out of the box and try and see what might work. And again, it all comes down to ZK being enabler of the use case, not necessarily trying to force fit ZK into your existing stack. We just need to focus on the problem statement at hand, and if it makes sense that ZK and modularity can solve that, then absolutely let's go for it. If not, then there are other techniques to there are many other existing ways to solve these problems.
Yeah, I think 3 to 5 years is a pretty long time frame, especially in crypto. So I mean, not too sure how the ZK modular space will look like in 3 to 5 years, but I think there's an interesting development, and it's kind of about like the hybrid rollups. So I think read some papers about like where because in today like we're talking about like either you're an optimistic guy or you're a ZK guy, right? So you're a believer that optimism or Arbitrum is going to win, or one of these like ZK rollups. But there are also some papers that are talking about like a hybrid rollup structure, right? So basically an environment where instead of like competing optimistic and ZK, like you have a convergence of these rollups, right? So you can actually combine certain like optimistic rollups with ZK elements, right? And I think that's also, for instance, like Optimism working on Bedrock. You have these ZK VMs that are trying to, help accommodate and also accelerate that adoption, right? So I think that's something that's going to be interesting, and maybe
will see more of these kind of hybrid models. Obviously, with modular solution, you can actually decompose and compose like specific kind of blockchains based on their needs, right? So I think that's going to be interesting to watch for.
Thank you for sharing. And you guys just shared your opinion on now and in 3 to 5 years use case. So does that apply to your investment strategy? Like, what's your investment strategy short term and also long term?
Yeah. That's an interesting question. Yeah, as you know, Hans mentioned that 3 to 5 years is a long time in crypto, and so the investment strategy is not so much driven by what's happening in the ZK. Some of the fundamental concepts always remain same, which are, you are backing the capability of the founder to be able to identify the problem correctly and being able to iterate over time. I think given, we have already seen in the last 2 years ZK have evolved very, very significantly. So I think the investment is not necessarily based on, this team has, at the moment, a really good ZK framework. There are tons of researchers and there is a lot of open source research ongoing. You could work with, some of the greatest minds as long as you are able to focus on the problem at hand, as long as you are able to, able to persist to find a solution. I think that's what drives the investment strategy. So for example, you look at the success of Optimism, it's obviously doing great, and for anything you could say good things and bad things. And I'm not talking about what's good or bad with Optimism, but at the moment Optimism has good traction. And for the ZK fraud proof, they're working with Owen Labs and Risk because they realize these guys have spent a lot of time doing the research in this space. So it's not necessarily, the investment strategy is not necessarily driven by the ZK element of it or the modularity element. It's mostly driven by the team working on the solution, their identification of the problem, and their commitment to solve that problem, and then being able to adapt over time. That's what drives the investment strategy.
Yeah, I think for us, we usually follow the most latest innovation in the industry. So I already mentioned the 3 areas that we interested to chat, like the innovation and modularity space. So besides that, I'm also very interested to see the new program team involved, but that will be more on the research side rather than in the product side. And in terms of investment strategy, I think it's still you want to invest in a great company. So no matter whether it's ZK or modularity or any kind of technology, they must have the technology innovation. They can be copycat or copy other people's projects. And also from the business model perspective, how do they turn the research and also the latest technology into kind of the Facebook business model, and how to grow the ecosystem, which is really, really important. So I think for us, we really want to help the founders to help them to generate the go-to-market line, and also to help them brainstorm how can they grow the ecosystems. But we are also looking for the top the builders and researchers in the space who can drive the crypto innovations in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, no, I do think for us, because you're operating in primary markets, so in that sense, the thesis should always be more long-term focused, right? Obviously, you have short-term investors, but yeah, I think for these novel areas like ZK, modularity, MEV, whatever, intense, right? These are very novel developments, but I do want to emphasize on the fact that after all, you are investing in founders and in businesses, right? Because betting on markup games, right? It's not always sustainable, right? So I think it's very important to actually discover and define okay, you're dealing with founders and you're dealing with businesses. So even though they're operating in these very fundamental pioneering research, but ultimately what are the products that they're building? Does it have a clear PMF, so product market fit, or is it just doing something shiny and then trying to attach a problem to a solution, right? So it's brute forcing. And it's hard to kind of find a balance between those two, these elements, because obviously you want to be pioneering these research, and as an investor you want to be kind of on the forefront of these trends. So you try to catch these kind of, narratives or these trends early on, but then crypto moves so fast, right? I think a couple years ago we were talking about plasma, and now it's all about rollups, right? And now it's like ZK rollups, optimistic rollups, and we're also still talking about charting, but Ethereum's roadmap is like maybe decades away, right? So always there's procrastination. So it's hard to find these balance, right? But yeah, I guess like ultimately like in such an early stage, you're trying to bet on founders, right? Because you probably have a couple competitors building the similar or same thing, but ultimately like if the founders, they don't, match the background check, or they actually don't have, these like skill sets, right? Yeah, you can write whatever white paper or pitch deck you want, but it's not going to succeed.
Yeah, look at the founder, look at the team. Thank you for sharing a valuable investment strategy. And I'm sure within our audience, there are early stage startup founders. They are building in ZK and also modularity domain. They're still in fundraising phase. Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, first thing I would like to acknowledge is that founders come in very, very different flavors. It's not necessary, there's no playbook to adopt, which will lead to success. But I think there are certain things that we should always keep in mind. A few of those on the top of my head, like you should not be building product just based on the narrative that's going on in the market, because narratives shift quite quickly. So you might feel ZK is the next big thing, and hence you just focus on ZK. But as I mentioned, I've already mentioned multiple times, the focus should be on the problem statement. And then the other aspect is you should always be open to, you should be quite adaptable and versatile. So if you look at Ethereum's success, Ethereum was not designed to run on scale, but they ended up having that success. But still, Ethereum continues to be the dominant force in the Web3 market, because they have a very long-term vision and a roadmap which allows them to iterate over time and continue maintaining that, find that product market fit over time. So yeah, I think for founders it's absolutely necessary to have clarity in terms of what's the problem that you're trying to solve, and just you need to be persistent and not FOMO or not decide based on the narratives that there are in the market. You need to take those cues, obviously. So to say, you can't just use an outdated technology. But there's a thin line between being updated and then driving a decision based on narratives.
Yeah, I think building a startup is really like a great opportunity cost, because you invest a lot of time and money. That is why for all the founders, I really suggest be really careful starting your own startups. So don't just I want to do my own startups. And also another suggestion I may give to all the founders is before you start to build this product, but you need to validate this idea is actually valid or not. You need to actually do some PMF first to examine your idea whether it's feasible or it's not feasible. So then my suggestion is that if you build in ZK space, talking to all the popular founders like ReZero, like Starkware, like ZK, share with them your idea, get the feedback from them, and then talking to top researchers like Barry from PSE, like the other researchers. Then after talking to all those scale-up brains in the industry, and then you have the better idea of whether your idea is valid or not. Because eventually, you don't want to build a startup and realize, this idea is not valid. It's actually waste your time and money, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I elaborate a little bit about building a project, because often in crypto we forget we're building companies. So yeah, and this is an issue I've seen, not just in crypto, but it's also a wider tech space. I think a lot of founders, they build a product without actually establishing or confirming their PMF. So and they get very attached to the startup, which makes sense, because you're spending years, right, to actually keep honing your skills and keep honing the business models. But I think really defining a problem is key, right? Don't come with a solution and try to brute force a problem, because that's what we see too often in crypto, but also in the tech space in general. And I think maybe a piece of advice for founders that are currently in their fundraising process. So I've heard this question a lot, right? So where founders say, I want to quickly raise my round and then go back to building, right? Maybe for a lot of founders here, I mean, you're very familiar with that concept. But I actually, whenever I speak to projects or startups that are trying to rush their fundraising process, I always kind of recommend to do the opposite, right? Because you're basically starting a relationship with your investors. So, I mean, if you're fundraising, it is very crucial to identify your shortcomings as a founder. It's because you're leveraging investors, resources and their skill sets to match your shortcomings, right? So it's like speed dating. You're matchmaking with your investors on a long-term relationship to actually build something that's going to work out hopefully in the future, right? So actually, I would recommend double down and instead of only investors due diligencing or researching whether you're a sound project or founding team, you also should spend some time to due diligence your investors. Are they, hands-on investors? Are they actually working their ass off to help you to succeed, or are they just oh, I want to give you some money and then hope you, make some money for them, right? So do spend some time and talk to investors and also triangulate whether your investors are really, going to be helpful for it. Because I've seen also in last cycle where founders just raise a bunch of money and they realize, hey, your investors dump on you the first day, right? And that's going to hurt you in the long run. So that's, I think, a very solid piece of advice for founders in the space.
Thank you for sharing your valuable insights. I hope you guys can learn one thing or two. I definitely learned a lot. And thank you for your time today.
Hey guys, thank you so much for attending the panel session. But before we move to the networking session, can you please save 1 minute together on stage here? We're gonna for a group photo with Menta team. Just 1 minute, guys. Kenny and Victor, are you still here? Okay. Oh, yeah.